stretch ourselves here at the Coaching Catalyst. So, this is a first. We are podcast recording and live streaming simultaneously. This is the first time we've done this. So, if you catch this, send us some love. Any feedback, welcome. Thank you for being here.
And just a heads up to our podcast producer who is going to be listening to this and thinking, Sarah and Rebecca, this is not normally how you start your podcast. What is going on? Thank you, Phoebe and Claire, for being so patient with us over at Winter Audio. We are trying something new, and we hope that if you're interacting with us, then you can share with us what your reflections are, and we can answer some questions along the way as well. So we're going to go straight into it, Sarah, into our intro, and I will hand that over to you. Or
Okay.
me?
It's you, actually, but yeah,
It's
go
me.
on.
Over to me. Welcome to another episode of the Coaching Catalyst podcast with me, Rebecca Daniel, and my friend and co host, Sarah Bramall. This is the space where we have honest and real and reflective conversations all about coaching, coach development, and coach supervision. As I said, I'm Rebecca Daniel, and
I'm Sarah Bramall, and today we are both diving into a theme that we both feel really passionate about. What does it mean to stretch as a coach? Now, I'm laughing because you all know I'm a yogi, right? So I've been on my mat this morning, I'm always stretching. But what does it mean to stretch personally and professionally? Why is it so important? And how can supervision and mentor coaching help us to lean into that stretch rather than to avoid it?
so today's episode, Stretch, how coaches can grow through challenge. And I'm also laughing because we do love a bit of stretch over in the Catalyst. Sarah and I are not natural stretchers physically, but mentally, yes. We love to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, and we love to do new things that are pushing us to be better people, better humans, and better coaches. So when we talk about stretch, we don't necessarily talk about stretch in the sense of pushing yourself to the limit where you're overwhelmed and you're burnt out, but we're talking about a conscious level of growth personally and professionally. And so this is where we encourage you to move outside of your comfort zone. We do it often over in the Catalysts, and we want you to think about how you can evolve in your practice, in your presence, in your reflection, in your skills, in your knowledge, in all of the things that make us who we are.
And I think coaching by nature is a stretchy profession because we never know what's going to come up in a coaching session. We have no choice really other than to be present and to go with whatever arises. But we can also challenge ourselves to greater stretch and therefore greater growth. And the ways in which we can do that are by asking more courageous questions, by having more courage in the way in which we hold space, particularly in getting comfortable with silence. We can stretch ourselves in terms of who we choose to work with. So that might be working with people at increasing levels of seniority. It might be working with more complex coaching issues. When we come across ethical dilemmas, having the confidence and stretch to be able to navigate those with integrity, and knowing that when we're coaching, we're working people on their personal and professional growth. And a necessary sort of tenet of growth is discomfort. So knowing that growth and discomfort have to be able to coexist.
Mm. Do you know what I love about that, Sarah, is that when I often ask people in coaching or in supervision, like, how do you know when you are feeling that level of stretch? And sometimes it's like a physical feeling. Sometimes we can just feel it in our body or in the way that we're being, in the way that we're showing up. And often we could also feel it in our mind, like we can experience it in the way that we're talking to ourselves, those internal dialogues that we're having with ourselves. How do you feel or notice stretch?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, it's for sure in my body. I can definitely feel my body going, whoa. And, then tuning into my body to be curious about what kind of stretch this is. Um, because usually it's stretch that's indicating that this is a sign of growth. So rather than it letting me stop me in my tracks, going, okay, this is a sign of growth, this feeling of nerves is coming up for me, but actually I know that this is just indicating that I'm learning, that I'm stretching, and that it won't last forever either.
Yeah. And I think for me, my goodness, I do feel it in my body. I can't
Mm,
describe that feeling. Sometimes it feels like a level of excitement and sometimes it's a level of fear. So I have to kind of
yeah.
distinguish between like which one it is and which one I'm feeling. Um, and often I encourage myself to push through it as well. I think that's really important when I feel or notice that and there's a bit of a resistance around it. I have to think to myself, is this a level of fear that's responding? And do I want to overcome that? And often, most of the times, it's yes, I'm going to do it. So one common area is presence, right? When coaches talk about feeling that stretch, they often comment when it's happening in their coaching practice that they notice that it's either impacting or changing their presence as a coach. So often they ask, like, how do I stay present when I'm not really too sure, when a client has not said anything and they've gone silent? Do I fill the space with the next question? Or I'm not really too sure if I'm present with a client because I'm thinking about what that next question will be. So that could be one area of stretch that could occur for coaches in their practice. And that often comes up in supervision. Like, how do I feel comfortable and go with the flow in my practice without overthinking?
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think there is a very strong correlation between that place of stretch and and noticing sometimes when it impacts on our coaching presence. And I think if you're noticing that as a coach, then brilliant, because it shows that you're reflecting on the effectiveness of your presence. I think as we grow as well, in terms of the nature of the work that we're doing, that can bring stretch in as well. So, one example is one of the coaches in our supervision collective asked a question today, or asked a question earlier this week about how do I navigate tripartite or sort of three-way contracting with an organization. And so when the level of coaching that we are doing changes, when there are different relationships within the coaching relationship that goes beyond the coach and the coachee, navigating that complexity of contracting is something that can feel
Mm.
stretchy, because we're not just working on a one-to-one basis, or maybe we're for the first time contracting with groups in group coaching or teams in team coaching. And that can definitely bring up questions of stretch for us. Or, as you said, Rebecca, noticing that we are being stretched and that taking away from our presence, or sometimes in terms of the subject matter actually that comes into the coaching space, or the emotions that come into the coaching space, some of that can be triggering for us. And again, can be a challenge to our presence, a challenge to our clean coaching approach. All of that happens, and all of that is a sign, absolutely, of growth.
Mm, yeah, and it is a sign of growth. And this is where we need to make a decision, like an active decision, right? Whether we want to continue learning and growing and stretching ourselves, or whether we're happy in that nice, comfy, comfort blanket, that nice, comfortable place where we know what's happening when it is happening, and we are not necessarily pushing ourselves. And I know we definitely hold the flag for let's keep challenging and let's keep learning and growing, because it never stops, does it? As coaches, when you leave your coach training and go into professional coaching, we don't think that the coach development should stop. It should be an ongoing approach. So we are talking about stretch today, and you've mentioned there around stretching organizations. What else could occur within organizations that could feel stretchy for internal or organizational coaches?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Rebecca. And there's lots at play there for those of you who are working internally, isn't there? Because of course you're dealing, again, not just dealing with an individual or even dealing with a team, but you're working with the systems of the organizations, and everything that comes with that. So actually maintaining that presence as a coach, and managing the complexities of the relationships and dynamics that surround that also can be a point of stretch. So I think, yeah, really interesting question. What do you think about that, Rebecca?
So currently, thank you, Sarah. Currently I'm working in having a conversation with an organization at the moment, and I think the stretch for me is around the number of participants or stakeholders, should we say, that are involved in the relationship, and
Mm,
before the relationship has even started. And I think that's really important, is that we're navigating many systems. You mentioned it earlier about navigating dual relationships, but we're navigating many systems, and each system has their own agenda, kind of their own internal and external KPIs, measurements. And so as a coach, the level of stretch for me is, okay, like, we're contracting as a whole, and coaching is always at the center of it all, but also you have to be mindful of what's happening around that individual, and also meeting other KPIs that haven't been put upon you by the individual coachee as well. So I think that experience currently is a level of stretch for me. It's a good one.
mm.
It really is a good one, like in navigating multiple relationships within an organization. But I think it's something that we will have to learn to face when we're looking at not necessarily just working with individuals, but we're looking to work with businesses and organizations.
Mm, yeah, I agree. I think it's, it's a completely different skill set actually, and often one which we're not very well prepared for in coach training. So actually learning that on the job, and again, this comes back to the fact that it's so important to have professional relationships with other coaches, because it's from other coaching professionals that we ask these questions like, how do you do it, how do you navigate this, what's your experience? And that's how we learn. And Sherry, thank you very much for sharing there. Stretch is where the growth happens. Those of you listening to the podcast, we are also live streaming today, so we've got some interaction, from our members of our community as well. And absolutely agree, stretch is where the growth happens. And I think linked to that, again, when we come out of coach training, often the nature of the coaching that we're doing, even for those of us on the ICF path at ACC level, it's still fairly transactional in terms of the nature of coaching that we're doing. It may still be focused predominantly on performance. And as we gain in confidence and experience, our coaching approach becomes more relational, and it moves into being something that's more transformational. And I think that probably goes back to what we were saying about, for us as coaches, that emphasis on personal and professional growth, because we have to be equipped and prepared ourselves to go there, to go outside the bounds of, whatever model we're using, really dig into our presence, really be prepared to be reflective, which is where, definitely where the stretch happens and how we grow in competence as coaches.
Mm. So we offer a mentor coaching program, which we'll talk about later on at the end of this at the end of this episode. But it's not just in mentor coaching; it's also in supervision. So we'll probably interlink with two hats here today, a bit of both. But how does supervision come into supporting us as coaches to step into that stretch, to know what it feels like, and to experience how it can really enhance us? So I think I'm going to overstep on Sarah's point here, but supervision is essential for us if we're thinking about that level of stretch. And we speak about the three functions of supervision in the Catalyst as formative, normative, and restorative. And all three aspects, which we'll break down for you in a second, invites a level of stretch for you as a coach in your practice. So the formative stretch, and I'll push over to Sarah for the normative stretch. The formative stretch is the one around like skill development. So we always say, like, how are you learning? How are you growing? And it's the question that you will ask yourself, which is like, I don't know what I don't know until I know it. And so supervision encourages you to seek that feedback and those external perspectives and the space to explore what those blind spots are. So for us currently, that skill development looks like us both engaging in our ILM level 7. And that, my goodness, is definitely a stretch. I'll let Sarah talk about that in a bit, but it's definitely a stretch in terms of what we thought we knew versus what we didn't know versus a challenging concept of exploring actually different perspectives of maybe what we thought we knew isn't actually the way things are. There are many questions there, but looking at theorists, looking at other researchers, looking at other thought leaders has really been challenging. And also, I'm going to add there that time has also made that challenging. So we can't escape the fact that we are both business owners, we're both professional coaches, professional supervisors, we train as well, as we train coaches too. But in addition to that, we're both mothers, we're both partners, daughters. So we've got levels of complexity that means that the time that we engage in that developmental process might not be as much as somebody who didn't have all of those levels of responsibilities. But the stretch there is also trying to find time to fit it in so that we can engage in it. So there is always time in the day. I don't want to get into the debate about there's not enough time in the day. There is definitely not enough hours in the day, but there is always time that we can find, even if it's just moments of time that we can work on our development. And it doesn't always have to be as formally as an ILM level 7. It could be podcasts like this one. It could be articles, could be blogs. But I'll push over to Sarah for the normative stretch.
I'll tell you a bit more about the formative first, because I sensed like a bit of an evil laugh from Rebecca there. So I'll share the story.
Share the story, Sarah.
I'll share the story. So we had one of our ILM 7 sessions last week. And for the first time, the tutor said it would be really great if we do some coaching practice and peer observation of each other. So I was like, yeah, fine, I'll go. So threw my hat into the ring. Sometimes it's good to go first because then the pressure's off, right? You do it first. But of course, in that process, of course, you're then open to different people's perspectives, and that's where the development comes from. And it's just, it was a great reminder for me of coaching and of receiving feedback from different lenses, different people with different experiences, different coaching philosophies. And it's all really great learning. And I think, what went alongside that was in that last session, it's really helping me to review all of my coaching processes from the initial point of contact and contracting and onboarding through to the effectiveness with which I reflect as a coach. And to be honest with you, I thought I was doing okay. And then after last week, I was like, there's even more to do here. And it's accepting that we're doing a good job and there's always more to learn. There's always more stretch to embrace. And that's how we become more skilled as professionals. So the formative is feeling very real and present for both of us right now, I would say. But moving on to the second function, which is the normative. Now, I always think normative sounds a bit weird, but essentially, when we talk about the normative function of supervision, it's really about the ethics and professionalism that we have as coaches. So, when we ran our International Coaching Week a few weeks ago, one of the things I shared was some work by Eric DeHaan, who said that no professional intentionally, or very few professionals intentionally set out to do anything unethical. Most of what is ethically dubious happens in the grey areas within our practice. Most of us, the vast majority of us, absolutely act with integrity and the intention to do good. And yet, there can be grey areas that come up for us in terms of coaching ethics. And that's what that normative function allows us to do, is to go to those places that We may have uncertainty, we may have shame around. They may be places that feel uncomfortable or stretchy to grow into. But actually, it's really important that we have, again, those opportunities to explore, where am I aligning with ethical practice? To what extent am I aligning with the ICF or the Association for Coaching or the EMCC competencies? How am I aligning with the Global Code of Ethics? And where might I be crossing a line, or where might there be a grey area? And let me shine a light on that. Let me look at that. Those conversations are 100% stretchy, but that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful for the confidential container of the supervision space, so that we can bring those out onto the table and explore them rather than burying them and continuing with our practice as if nothing had happened.
Mm. So I'm rewinding because I know that it'll be my chance to be in the chair as well, Sarah, in the observation chair. So I'm going to just humble myself and and reduce my evil laugh. But yeah, thank you, Sarah, for sharing that around the normative stretch. And for the last one here, we're going to go for the restorative stretch.
Mm.
And this one's really important to us because we cannot engage effectively in the formative or the normative if we're not okay in ourselves. And so this is around not just our mental well-being or our physical well-being, it's also around like that emotional resilience that we bring to our practice as well. But we have to recognize that. So I mentioned that Sarah and I have got many roles and many hats that we wear, and we have to think about how we're resourcing ourselves so that we can engage in the formative and the normative and the skill development, how we can be aware of our ethical practice as well. And so we have to think about, what are we doing in between all of that? What are we doing before we even engage? And so it's about a process. So Sarah mentioned that she's been on a yoga mat this morning. If you were over on Instagram, you would have seen that I'm on my bike now. I'm back on the bike, Sarah. I'm back on my
Yay.
Peloton.
Yes,
Yes, I'm
yes.
enjoying it.
Celebrating
um
you.
Thank you. And I think it's just really important. I said to myself the other day, Sarah, I said, in 24 hours, if I cannot give myself 30 minutes, then there is a problem. And so my
Mm-hmm.
mindset has really shifted. Like, I can give myself
Awesome.
30 minutes on my phone. I can give myself
Mm,
30 minutes on the TV, which is very rare. I don't really watch TV anymore.
mm,
I can give
mm.
myself 30 minutes at bath time with the kids when I'm sitting there reading a book. So I
Yeah,
need to give myself 30 minutes for myself, at least, minimum.
yeah.
And so we need to think about whether we're in supervision or not in supervision or in mentor coaching, but what's the space that we have for ourselves, that we're processing and we're being held and we're being supported so that we can stay well.
Mm,
Because staying well means that we can stretch sustainably. It means that there is a longevity to the work that we do. It means we don't burn out, we don't become overwhelmed, although, you know, sometimes we know that will often creep in, the overwhelm. But how do we manage that? What skills do we have to ensure that we can mitigate any unresourceful influences that it can have on our practice and on ourselves?
yeah, 100%. Completely agree. And, you know, I'm just thinking, only yesterday, you and I had conversations where we were both acknowledging that we were stretched, that, you know, this situation, this personal situation, this professional situation is testing my resilience, and acknowledging that it's real, like growth is real. And you know, we both acknowledge and feel that. And so, yeah, you know, we're very fortunate to have the support that we offer to each other, but also for both of us, the support that we receive through supervision is absolutely essential to our well-being as coaches, so that we can continue to embrace the stretch and know that we're being held, know that we're being supported, and that we're going to be okay.
Mm. So don't just take it from Sarah and Rebecca. Because you know, that is just one perspective. I think it's really important for us to think about, how does this link into some of the key coaching bodies out there. So Sarah and I are both accredited and members of the International Coaching Federation and the European Mentoring Coaching Council. And so we'll look at those kind of competencies today, and we'll also just start to wrap up and kind of wind this up, because we know you all are incredible listeners, but we know that not all of you might have an hour to spend with us talking about stretch. So we are going to head into a close soon. So when we're looking at the competencies, if we look at competency 2, Sarah, which is
Yeah.
around coaching mindset, I'll hand over to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, ICF competency 2 about embodying a coaching mindset calls us to be open to learning and open to reflective practice. And without doubt, both supervision and mentor coaching help us in that space of learning and reflective practice. What else, Rebecca?
And so the next one is if we look at how you're evoking awareness, and I think everything starts from the awareness,
Yeah.
everything starts from that. If we don't think about that, then we won't be able to make any changes or any adjustments. And so we'll continue to be as we were and we won't be able to grow. So competency 7 is around evoking awareness, and it helps us to think about like what's the inner work that we need to do. And by doing that inner work, it's not just for ourselves, but it means if we do the work for ourselves, we're then better placed to support our clients in doing the work for themselves too. So it does have a pretty positive knock on effect once we're doing all of that self awareness and development for ourselves. And we can recognize it in our coaches too. Like if we notice that they're potentially holding back or they could do something else, we notice that because it's a feeling that we might have resonated with ourselves in a previous part.
Mm. Mm-mm. Yeah. And thank you. And I really value the way that the EMCC particularly emphasizes that importance of the commitment to our ongoing professional developments and ongoing reflective practice. And as you said earlier, Rebecca, that doesn't have to mean necessarily doing a course or doing an ILM 7. It might mean listening to a podcast like this, reading a book. It can be little things as well as the kind of the more substantial things. But either way, stretch isn't optional. We are in the business of growth and development through the nature of the work that we do with our clients. So to be credible professional practitioners and ethical practitioners, absolutely stretch or learning and growth is an essential part, an essential component for me.
And it's not always optional and it's not always wanted either, is it?
No, sometimes we'd rather not. Thank you very much. Rather sit on the sofa and eat a
Sometimes.
packet of chocolate digestives and stay as I am. 100%.
Exactly that. This reminds me of me when I said I was going to sit down and write one of my assignments the other day, and I was like, "Oh, I might just," and in the end, I decided to order school uniform instead, which was productive, but it's not always welcome. And it can trigger. Definitely for me, it triggers that be perfect, that work hard. I was speaking to you the other day. I was like, "Do you know what? In this phase of my life, good is good enough."
Yeah.
And so we need to just think about those. We need to recognize those feelings and notice that. And also I think it's important for us to know why we're doing certain things or why we want to do certain things. So why do we want to learn and grow? Like who is it to benefit? And what is the impact or the outcome of that as a result? So I would encourage you all just to think about taking it small and easy. It doesn't have to be anything monumental, but if you're there with us in that go stretch zone, and you're thinking about how can I continue to develop as a coach, how can I continue to elevate for my clients and give them the best, how can I continue to adhere to ethical competencies and ethical practices, how can I continue to look after myself, then we've got something special for you.
So, as this episode goes out, we're at the midpoint of the year. And the midpoint of the year for me is always a really great time to take stock and to reflect and look ahead to the end of the year and think, where do I want to be 6 months from now? How am I going to know that I have grown personally and professionally? So, we are launching our mentor coaching program. This is the third cohort of our mentor coaching program for those of you who are on the ICF pathway. So that's if you are accrediting at ACC or at PCC, or if you're renewing. We are offering the mentor coaching program, and we really love delivering this program, and we are starting it in September, but we are starting the process of welcoming coaches to join us for that, and our sort of introductory session is happening actually quite soon in July. And that is for both of us, we've both went through PCC at the same time, and for both of us, we found that such a stretchy experience, not going to lie, but such a valuable experience in sharpening those professional skills, helping us increase in confidence as coaches as well. So if you would like to know more about that, please do pop us an email, and we will be very, very happy to share that with you. What else do we want to share, Rebecca?
So we will pop the links in the show notes for the mentor coaching. And I just want to add on to that, Sarah, that we had a sale come through this week from a coach, right?
Yeah.
And it was a coach that you were having a conversation with. And this is why it's really important to mention this, is because these developmental plans don't just happen always overnight.
Mm.
Like, it's important to think that we have to think ahead. So I think people are so used to in society now having things instantly, and a process like this isn't instantaneous. It's gradual, it's stretchy, it's challenging. Um, there's a level of vulnerability there, a level of exposure, but I think that's the best type of stretch, because it means that we will look back on this process. And I definitely look back on sitting the ICF exam or looking at the ethics. I definitely look back and go, okay, so these have been building blocks or steps towards where I am at now. And at every step enhances my confidence each and every time. So I
Mm.
then know, okay, I am doing a good job. This is why. This is the evidence that I've got. And so I will stack all of that over time. So if you are thinking about this, it's not something that you will think about in the moment. I think it's something that you think about in advance, and you go through that process with a group of other mentees and other coaches who are looking to develop too. So you know that you're in a like minded space. The other level of stretch is supervision. And we have doors open to the Coaching Catalyst Collective, Supervision Collective, twice a year, July and January. So if you're thinking now is the time that I want to be in a supportive environment, stretched by a supervisor and my peers, I want to learn and grow and develop in a group, and this is for an ongoing basis, then please do go to our website and click on the supervision option and look all that you need to know about joining the Supervision Collective. Once doors close in July, they don't open again until December for the January cohort. And when they close in January, again, they don't open until May, June for the July cohort. So don't miss your opportunity.
Okay, so again, it's been a rich conversation today, and we hope that you're taking something from this. So if you are thinking about your growth, if you're thinking about your stretch, or something has resonated with you today, don't forget to connect with us. You've got in the show notes all of our links, all of our social media links on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Do come and connect with us. Let us know how you are learning, how you are growing, or what has landed or resonated for you. But the question that I'm going to leave you with today is, where are you being stretched right now?
And we love a good WhatsApp message. So you'll also see our WhatsApp link in the show notes. Please do pop us a message and let us know, where are you being stretched right now? Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Coaching Catalyst podcast. We will see you this time in 2 weeks' time in your ears. Does that even ring a bell? I don't know. In your earphones. We'll see you later. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.